It's not going to help. Okay. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this next parent panel session. We have a panel that's going to be going on with Lisa Hancock and Karen Skarda, who both have lots of experience and plenty to share. So be aware that we're going to have each of them introduce themselves and kind of their story and their experience. And then we will be opening things up to questions that you may have on things that they've done or how they've handled issues or things like that. So if you want to open up our Slack chat line, you're welcome to input questions as they come up, and we'll address them once we get to the question answer portion of their presentation. So we're going to start with Lisa, and I'll turn time to her to go ahead and introduce herself and give you a little information about what she does and her experience.
Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Hancock, located in New York City. I'm going to actually switch over to a few slides. Give me a second. Okay, so hello. Hi from New York City again, and just wanted to start really from how our family got where we are today. I have a now 8-year-old, Max, and let me see here. I do. Sorry, I'm new to this. Let me go back. Okay, I have an 8-year-old named Max, and I also have a 2-year-old, James. And over the course of about the first 2 years of his life, a lot of different delays were revealed. He was diagnosed with global delays, and so we really sort of started to uncover themselves very slowly over time. And at 12 months old, Max was still nonverbal. And let me see. Like I need to, okay. And at about 12 months, we began speech therapy. But then we started using some PECs and some low-tech AAC, but at 3 years old, we really realized we needed something else. Max still didn't have a lot of language, and you know, where do we go from here? So it really was a lot of trial and error for us. We didn't have a lot of resources available to us, it felt like, and the Department of Education in New York City back then, which is not that long ago, 6 years ago, didn't really provide a lot of options when they did assistive tech or AAC evaluation. So when we did the eval for Max at about 3 years old, they gave us this giant Tech Talk device that we had to make different cards for, but we didn't have the software to do it. It was really sort of a nightmare. So we, at home, and along with the teachers, decided to try something high-tech for Max. Max, even though he has fine motor delays, does use direct access to access his talker, which is today Speak for Yourself on an iPad mini. And we did start on Proloquote to go, but that was before Crescendo was introduced. And so that wasn't working for us at that time, and so we did switch over to Speak for Yourself. Early on, I felt like we faced a lot of challenges, limited knowledge in that it was really, really difficult to find an SLP with AAC information or a background. Our teachers at school didn't have a lot, even though the classrooms were very rich in low-tech tools. There wasn't a lot of high-tech in the classrooms really yet. They had a really great smart board, but you know, there still wasn't a lot of children with individual devices about 6 years ago. Implementation at home I found incredibly difficult. I couldn't figure out where to start. I felt overwhelmed, and it just really seemed to be, really was difficult for me. There was a lot of confusion early on about what vocabulary to use, where it should be located, how big should the button be, you know, should we move things, should people have their own folders, what should be on the top page. It really felt very complicated. And limited attention to the device, and not just from my son, who already has limited attention issues. I mean, it really, for everybody, you know, nobody was really sticking with it when we started, and we really had to figure out how to use it better as a family, and with our therapists and teachers. And then we also had a situation where Max just wouldn't use it. I mean, the device got tossed, it got ignored, it got, you know, stepped on. It was just, he was not having it for at least the first 6 months. It was really difficult to get him to be interested in it. We did have a lot of early support, which felt like a lot of, so we did have some early success and some people who were helping us, and I thought this was really critical to helping us move forward and stick with it. We had dedicated, sharp teachers and therapists who were willing to use the device and willing to collaborate with us, as well as the school who communicated regularly with us so we could carry over things at home. We also had family support, not just with the immediate family, my husband, myself, and babysitter who helped out regularly, but also for a lot of support with extended family, which I think made a difference as well. And then I did turn to a lot of different online support groups, Facebook groups, different places I could find academic articles, talking to other people about their experiences. And I think that all of these things really helped to support us early, even though it was definitely a bumpy ride. And just a couple of things I just kind of wanted to talk about, like what was important. Another thing that was really important to us early on was presuming competence, assuming that not only our family, but that other people really assumed that Max could do it. And that he wanted to, even though maybe at first he really was not really showing us that he wanted to, but believing that, you know, he had that the intellectual capability to do it. And, you know, on a regular basis, Max surprises me. And so I have really learned not to underestimate him and to really assume he can do it until he's shown me otherwise. So where are we now? So at 8 years old, we're up to about 3 to 4 word utterances. You know, there's a lot of one word sentences, but you know, that's fine. And he really is able to get his point across to a variety of people, including out in the community, which is great. His vocab is expanding. You know, we do see a lot of repetition in the words he uses, but the more we model at home and at school, his vocab is expanding. We need a little more practice in social situations. The whole family does, because it does get a little bit more difficult to use it. Max moves around a lot, but we've had some really great success, especially in the basketball court, where Max is the different peers that Max is playing with have taken a lot of interest in using his device, and that really is validating for him. The continued communication with school and therapists has been critical to ongoing successes. And today, and actually from this experience, I co-founded AAC Connection with a speech pathologist, Megan Fucci, and special educator, Yuki Okuma, which does provide professional and support to professionals and families who are supporting people who use AAC. And really it was born from all of our experiences that I just talked about, where it was difficult to find the support to integrate seamlessly into everyday environment. So do I have a couple more minutes? And I just wanted to show you Max. This is Max and me.
Yes, I think I'm gonna go tomorrow. Do you know where you're gonna go tomorrow? Well, you're gonna take a car tomorrow? Is that what you're thinking? Are you gonna go? Oh, Max, you know what? I don't remember where it is. Firehouse. F-I. Are you looking? Fire station. You know where we're gonna go?
Fire station.
Is that where you're going tomorrow? Yeah.
So that was Max, and you know, as you can see, he kind of he didn't look like he was paying attention to me, but he was paying attention to me. And the next day, he actually did use some of that language. But you know, in our house, a lot of modeling and opportunities to talk AAC happen sort of on the go. And so we just kind of have to keep moving around with Max and trying to trying to use the device as much as we can. And a few other things I just learned along the way about how important core vocab is. I mean, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir in a lot of cases here, but the core vocab and motor planning, not moving buttons around for Max was really important. And then modeling, which really I can't, say enough about. And I think that it really was super challenging at first. It feels weird. I didn't know how to do it, but then I kind of got to be second nature. And I think that it helped to show Max too that, it's okay. I mean, to use it, to not use it, and to, check out what I'm doing, because even if I think he's not listening, he usually is. And just want to say, keep calm and say a lot of core words. And I think that's something we talk a lot about at home too. And also I work with the school on, even though Max's vocab is expanding, he uses a lot of the same words to get his point across. And I'm just very appreciative that the technology exists and that the team that we have is so supportive of what we're doing. And keep in touch. Here's my contact information and our link to AAC Connection.
Awesome. We'll probably have you post those things in Slack as well. And we've had a little bit of difficulty seeing some of the slides, but if we'll post them in there, it'll be great.
Okay, will do.
That'll be awesome. Karen, we'll go ahead and turn some time to you so that you can introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Okay, great. Look, I'm trying to think, how do I share my screen? I don't see the button.
On the left-hand side of the screen, there'll be a little box with a green screen.
Thank you. Okay, great. Okay, share. Okay, great. Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to play my slides. My name is Karen Skarda. Let me, no.
You can just do it there. It's fine.
No, I want to make them bigger so you can see them. They're cute kids. My name is Karen Skarda. I've got a 5-year-old and a little 3-year-old, as you can see there. Design. There we go. Slideshow. Play from beginning. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you can see my son and my husband there and my little daughter. So he is 5 years old and she is 3. They both have autism spectrum disorder. My son was diagnosed at a little bit after he was 2 years old. He never responded to his name when I would call his name. And then he also started to he has a lot of issues with changes in routine and just people. Like, that's how we kind of were like, something's up, because nobody can come to the house without him freaking out. We can't go places, etc. So we got him diagnosed and we started on the ABA, and the first bit was it really was just pairing for a very long time, just having somebody sit next to him and put their hand on my little son. But he's doing a lot better with that. And so that's kind of his background. He's had the ABA, and and then my daughter, while that was going on, she also was diagnosed. They're about a year apart. And she was diagnosed about the same time he started preschool. So, and her issue was she just was slow to respond to her name and gestures. Like my son Samuel, it took about a year for him to finally start using to point. And for my daughter, it only took about 6 months of doing that. And she actually babbled more than he did. So just so you kind of have a background, since it sounds like there's a lot of speech therapists, and you kind of know where they're at. And she doesn't have quite as much with the social anxiety, with people. Like, we've tried speech therapy with Samuel, but that's never really worked for him because he just screams and tries to leave the whole time. So we've kind of gone the ABA route with him. And my daughter, we've done some speech, but she's been very clear about how she'll babble, but as soon as you try to make her actually ask for something, she won't do it. And so that's kind of when we started moving to the high-tech device at that point. Let's see here. What else was I going to tell you about them? Okay, let's go to the next slide. Let's see if I can figure that out. So how we started. So when my son started in preschool, his teacher that year was a very experienced teacher, and we started with PECs and just a low-tech field size of 2. And it actually was kind of hard for him to just pay attention enough to look at that. So yeah, so you can see that most of those items on there that they were using were pretty highly preferred items. And they weren't core words at that point because he wasn't paying enough attention to them. So when we started that school, the Pingree School here in Salt Lake City, Utah, it's a school for autism. They rolled out to us Cough Drop. That's how I met Melissa when she joined the team. And it was kind of new at the time. None of the teachers actually knew how to use it. Like some of them had been using Proloquo. My teacher that year, she was used to the PECs. Anyway, so I just sort of started trying it because having PECs at home, like trying to keep track of pictures when your child is on the move and you've got two children on the move and they're both moving everywhere, I'll just tell you, it's kind of impossible. So you don't see a lot of core words. This is kind of our beginning things. Second try for my daughter, at least, we started with this field size of 2, really. So you can kind of see how we made it easier for her therapist to go into it so she could ask. And then we finally moved from 2 preferred items to 1 non-preferred, just because she was having a real hard time. Like, even though we knew that she could see a field size of 16, she didn't want to pay it. She still actually has problems with this, where she doesn't want to pay attention to it. I think they kind of have some ADHD. Anyway, so we just dumbed it down and said, you need to communicate with us, because we can't force you to talk and we can't force you to do sign language. We tried that for a while, that sign language didn't work. But we can make you, request something highly preferred, because nobody needs Nutella or marshmallows in their life unless, so they need to work for it. And then we kind of upgraded her. I know people have different opinions about how you start with, but it's kind of worked for us. So we just did like the field size of 4 and field size of 5, and then I just upgraded them to kind of what we're using today, where I kind of have a combination of, just so you can kind of see, because I actually really like seeing people's boards because it kind of gives me a sense of where they're at. Anyway, so you can kind of see how there's a combinations of verbs, descriptions, and kind of some things. We kind of looked at Proloquo. People always talk about like having like lending libraries, etc., but I've had a really hard time personally finding speech therapists that actually have any experience with the high-tech devices. And if they do, it's kind of superficial, which is okay. I mean, we're all learning this together. Like, that's why I'm excited. I'm just excited the technology's here, because it really helps my son, like with anxiety, where he knows that, we're trying to brush your teeth right now. Like, we're trying to bathe, because taking baths, like, that's taken a year to get. And changing clothes, he's finally changing clothes, not while he's asleep. So I'm really excited this year, actually, even if lately he's decided it's just pajamas. But anyway, so it's been really helpful for his anxiety levels, so that I can explain. I didn't show pictures of like the go place, like go home, go Grandma Skarda's house, or go, my sister's house. But that's actually been really useful for him too, because knowing where he's going, like, we're going to Walmart, we're going to Costco, we're going someplace specific, has really helped him with his anxiety level. And then I've kind of just, trying to add in the core words. Okay, next thing I just want to go on is the symbols that we use. Like, I actually really think it's really fascinating, all these different devices that I've seen. And I think the symbol sticks and the board maker symbols are awesome. I'll be honest, like, paying money, I don't know. I love these ones though, the ARA, SAAC ones. So you can kind of see a few of the pictures there. They're funded, I think, by the European Union, actually. So they actually have donated, you'll see their apps in Cough Drop, but you'll also see them in other places as well. So they're from Spain. So I showed you the little picture there of Aragon, I guess is where that is. Anyway, I really love their pictures. I think it's because my training is as a nurse, and so before I stayed home with my children, and so I love that they have pictures like poop, or like when I did my trial of Proloquo to go. I don't know why I couldn't ever find a picture of poop, but it's kind of useful. So anyway, they have lots of like medical terms that I think are just amazing. They're not all translated to English, from Spanish to English. That is a challenge. So every time I Like I'll look at for, anyway, it's a challenge, but I'll go look on their actual website themselves to try to find the words, because most words they actually do have, even if they're not necessarily on cough drop. The next thing is, this is another picture symbol set that cough drop uses that I try to use. This is my default. Number 2 is the Paxton Craft Charitable Trust, the straight street. So you can kind of see the in, out, open, on, where. I don't think I actually use that where button, but anyway, I really like theirs just because, let's face it, they're English. And so for your core words, they have them, which is really nice. Next thing, portability. So this is kind of what we're using. You can see my daughter. So we have, it's really cheap, you guys. And I know you lose something with having such small board sets because you have to go into the buttons so much. But anyway, I felt like since they've been so small up to this point, it's really helped to have it portable, because when you're holding 2 children, because they're running away from you in 2 different directions and they want to be held, and anyway, they're finally getting big enough. But you can kind of see that I have a little Amazon Fire phone, and then I just have, you know, the type of little, you know, the waterproof things you can buy on the little waterproof cases you can purchase on Amazon. They're really cheap. They're like $5 each. And so anyway, I've really enjoyed that. It was a free phone from my brother-in-law who, it didn't really work very well. He had rooted them, but yeah, so that's kind of what we use, because portability is, I really like portability. So I do want to upgrade this next year. I'm excited that my son's going to be starting kindergarten, and I'm really excited that he's got a teacher. Their teachers, they both have been in the same preschool this year, which has been great for like routines and getting to know people and just having exposure to things. However, they're new teachers, so they don't have a lot of visual supports, and they've tried to use the cough drop as I try to go into the classroom and volunteer and try to help encourage them and show them different ways we could potentially use it. But hasn't been really great. But so I'm excited that next year he's going to be in a kindergarten with a teacher who really has a lot of visual supports, and then there's a speech therapist there who's there in the classroom setting, so it's going to be less disruptive. So I think he'll actually work with her, which is exciting. And she's had 15 years. She's very experienced, like 15 years, and it seems like she's had a lot of experience with a lot of the different devices out there, which is exciting because, you know, boards are not static. You need to keep on expanding them. So anyway, yeah, I think that's about it for me.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you to you both. I appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead and open the Slack channel for questions. So if you guys have questions of parents and those that have been working, these ladies have worked a lot with AAC in their homes and in their lives. So if you have questions for them, feel free to type them in the Slack channel. But we do have some ahead of time that we'll go ahead and get started, and then as you add questions, we'll voice those as well. So to start off, what would you say to someone who says, my son or my daughter won't use a device? What am I supposed to do from there? And Lisa, let's have you go first, and then Karen will have you address that next.
Sure. This is something we found ourselves in this situation. Max wouldn't use it. He wouldn't. A lot of times he didn't even seem to be looking at it. But what we did at home was we just kept using it. I mean, we used it for months, I think, before he really started to have any independence or even be willing to go and get it himself. So it was just a lot of modeling, and it was a lot of modeling, a lot of the same language, because, you know, it is like learning another language. So over that time period, it helped us get more fluid. We got a little faster. You know, Max I think just kind of had to get used to it. My biggest advice here is just don't give up, because it could be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. I mean, a year, could be years, maybe, I don't know. But from what I learned from Max is he's always paying attention. He is thinking about it, I think, even if he's not demonstrating it right away. So, you know, I guess in conclusion would just be, just keep on keeping on.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, I think that's very true. That and kids deserve the opportunity, and it may not be easy, but yeah, you're right. It's worth it. Karen, do you have anything to add on that? What if they?
No, I think that's pretty much good. I just think simplify it. You know, like if they're really, I mean, you want to model all the time, but to try to get them to use it, if simplify it, high preference items. That's kind of worked for us. I mean, people will have different opinions, but if they can, if it's something that they really want and they're only going to get it if they push a button, I mean, that's pretty easy. So that's kind of my thought. Like, try to make it something they want to use, and then it's useful. And then just model, like she's saying.
Perfect. Okay, now I know both of you have faced this to some degree or another. What if your school or your teacher is not on board with this? What do you do from there? We'll start with you, Lisa. What do you think?
We faced that as well at different times in Max's school career. I think that one of the things that did help us was that his Max's IEP, within his almost every goal, it does discuss using AAC and using a speech generating device. So, you know, they do, the school, the team supporting him does need to abide by that. Also, I had the opportunity to visit Max in school and see what's happening. And for me and for the team, I think that helped a lot because, you know, I know him better than maybe his, you know, obviously his new teacher does, and was able to provide some feedback. And I also sent videos of Max because I totally agree with what Karen said in that, you know, Max is really motivated by basketball. So if I could demonstrate to his teachers what he can do at home, even if they were saying, well, he's not really using it at school, if I could be like, hey, look, check this out. You know, I think that also helped us out.
Yeah, I think you hit on something really important there, that as the parent, you really are the expert on your child. And so it's good for you to go and be involved and to be able to be there and interact with those teachers and therapists and things who may not see all the same things that you do. Karen, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, just trying to be in there has been really helpful for me personally, just so they can kind of see how I'm using it and I can see how they're using it or not using it, and kind of, so we can kind of see, and then you can kind of see what their goals are. Like, what would be useful for that teacher? Like, what are they trying to do? Like, she talked about the IEP, because suddenly that's what that teacher is being held, like that's what they're being measured on for that student. So that's really useful. So if you don't have an IEP, or, because I haven't had an IEP being in a preschool setting, it's been more just going there and saying, you know, they want them to succeed, and they want, I mean, that's why they went into preschool teaching. It's not like they just went there because they hate children. I mean, they love children. They want them to communicate. So they might have their own specific ways they want to try. They think that you should do that, but, you know, just kind of working together. And I think being in there somehow, you have a relationship. So suddenly you can start building. Like, we've started using it more towards the end of the year now, because we had new preschool teachers this year. Since I was in there, I could do that.
Good. Okay, along the same line, we have a question in here that says, do you have any advice that you would give to professionals for ways you have experienced strong supportive relationships? So what would you say to the professional side in order to try and develop that, Lisa?
I think for me early on, like, I needed one thing to do. Like, I couldn't do 5 things every week because Max had so many different things going on. And if I had one thing to concentrate on each week, so that when the next time Max saw that speech therapist, or the next time we, you know, sent an email update, I knew I could give an update about what we were doing. And that one thing could be like, okay, this week's words are go and on. And those, even if I do nothing else, like, I can just try to model those words, work with him on those. That's like, that was my goal. Like, I just needed, even if like Karen said, like, you want to keep it simple, but I feel like you have to keep it simple for the parent too.
Yeah, good advice. Karen, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, keeping it simple for the parents is useful too. But I just, you know, so I feel a little bit, I haven't actually really worked much with speech therapists. We tried when Samuel, before he got his diagnosis, and we didn't have any insurance coverage for it. And they just kept on trying to get me to leave so that maybe they could have a better relationship with Samuel if I left. But that was a disaster, obviously, because he didn't ever want to go into the building. And, you know, even when they're 2, they're kind of strong. It's kind of hard to force them to go in someplace if they really are that aversive to it. And then we've been trying to do some speech therapists, but the speech therapist at the preschool, she's new. I'm sure she'll be great. I mean, but she's new, so she's just kind of learning it, and she's got a huge patient load for the preschool. And then this year we started trying, and she seemed really good, and so she's been supportive, which has been really helpful, like helping make me feel like, yes, you're doing okay, like these are going to work, you know, what you can think about. So that's been helpful. And then, you know, one thing I wish I would have done maybe sooner is talk to the audiologists and gotten some recommendations for speech therapists who specialize in like high-tech AAC devices, because I didn't really know who to ask. And so, but now I think I finally actually found somebody, if I could get Samuel to stay in a room with them, that I think maybe could work for them. But with my daughter, you know, you know how you're like, but I think she could go. So anyway, I feel like we're getting there. You know what I mean? Like, so I think we're almost there where we can have somebody, so I can work with a speech therapist, because it would be really nice to have somebody being like, no, like it's been helpful. Like I've met with the speech therapist for next year, and she's like, it's okay, your symbol set, don't stress out that you're not using the board maker symbols. Don't, you know, that you don't have the grammar options ready quite yet, and your boards aren't perfect at this point, because, you know, technology is continually evolving, and there'll be cooler board sets in 5 years. Like, so it's been nice to have somebody who's had that like perspective and been like, no, your child is actually making progress, and I think we're going to make more progress actually this next year when I can help start working with them. So so anyway, sorry, that's probably good.
You're just fine, thank you. Let's see, in your experience, both of you, do you think that AAC has hindered natural speech in the children that you've worked with, and in your children specifically? Lisa.
I would say 100% no. I mean, not at all has it hindered Max's speech. In fact, I think that you know, he's hearing maybe my voice. He's seeing a picture. He's looking at me, pointing at it. He's touching it. There's a speech coming out of it, and he is oftentimes like he's making some sort of verbalization with it. Because today, as of right now, like Max is still nonverbal, but having said that, he has made significant progress in jaw control and tongue control, and really just practicing sound. So I don't know. I mean, from my experience, I would say no to that. And you know, I'm not sure what all the scientific evidence says, but I think that there is support for to indicate that it doesn't hinder speech at all.
Okay, good. Karen, we're going to give you a second because it looks like
okay. Sorry, my son wants all the blinds closed. Okay, sorry, I decided it would be better to be at home and not have a babysitter, because that would be probably less disruptive. That's really dark, sorry. Well, I'll just finish this one. Yeah, so I think it has not hindered at all. Like, so my daughter, right? So we got a diagnosis for her, and then you know how it takes a while to get all your insurance together so you can start ABA therapy. And during that time, you know, I'm like, I've got to get them talking. Like, they just need to talk. And so I probably wasn't doing it right, but I was using like the pivotal response therapy, which is, you know, it's a subset of ABA. And I really love her book and their stuff. And, you know, making like where you just basically, they have to produce a sound to get what they want, which was, it worked for Samuel. He finally has started to echo, right? But my daughter, seriously, she's very stubborn. It was like a half an hour to an hour before she finally would produce the word like come or cookie. And she'd like whisper it. And like, you know, you're like, that started to be ridiculous when it's an hour. Like, and they really want it. Like, it's super highly preferred. Obviously, their motivation, I mean, that's as high as your motivation they can get. So obviously, the motivation isn't, you can't increase the motivation. So I needed to decrease the effort. And so like the AAC device, it really fit the bill and really is helping her communicate somewhat, you know. She's only at 1 word utterances right now, so it's pretty straightforward. So
Well, anything is better than nothing. I think that's great. That's a good point. That yeah, and you're not going to find something that's perfect all the time. So you have to go with what you can do. And I think that's a good reminder. So we had a question in the chat room. Are either of you affiliated with the United States Society? Excuse me. Are you the United States Society of AAC member? And what is your favorite thing about the AAC community in general, or what kind of benefits have you found in the community? Lisa, what do you think?
Well, no, I'm not a member of that particular group, and I think that so the benefits makes me think of something somebody said to me very early on when I found out my son had special needs. She said it's about finding your people. So I think that for me, I found my people. Like I feel like I found a lot of people passionate about helping people communicate, no matter how they do it. And now I've had this another experience, having started AAC Connection and working with a speech pathologist, and being able to go into other people's homes whose children have different types of disabilities. Some people, some children using their eyes to communicate. Others maybe just at this point, just with a roll of a wrist to make a selection using a button. And I think that for me, like, these are just powerful experiences, and a regular reminder from the AAC community that anything is possible. And I think that when, sometimes when I'm doubtful, I just have to kind of go to some of the Facebook groups and hear and see what people are saying to each other. And I think that, finding your people.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think a lot of times we end up feeling kind of alone. And it's good to be reminded that there's a support group out there. Karen, do you have anything that you'd like to share on that?
I'm not a member of the United States Society of AAC. It sounds cool. I should probably check it out. And I'm really kind of new in this community. Like, since it's been, it's been like, it was December, January that I first signed up for my cough drop account, which was that was actually my first like really experience with an AAC device. So, yeah, but I think it's great what people are doing. Like, there's so many different amazing things. Like, some of the cool devices out there, I'm like, whoa, that's cool. I wish I could check that one out. Check them all out. But anyway, yeah, so, and like, even in like our symbol set, for instance, like, I've been really impressed with them. And they respond to me too, and they'll add the English translations when I get it to them. Like, anyway, so.
Good. Okay, so if you you could give your advice to people, when would you say people should start using AAC? Lisa.
I would say as early as possible. I don't know that there's an age. There maybe from a visual perspective. I don't know the medically behind it, but like I have a 2-year-old now, and so my 2-year-old, he can speak, but I never know, half the time I don't know what he's saying, or if he's he doesn't know the right language. He can use Max's device, and I think for him it's even helping him learn new language without me using the language, which is really nice. So I don't know that there's ever too early a time. I don't know. I would say there isn't.
Okay, Karen, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with that too. I'm like, I wish I would have known about these earlier. Like, they're super cool. And there's even like the free ones out there. Like, I know the AAC, I had it on my slide. There was one that was free. It was the Let Me Talk, or the error board is more for if you're Spanish speaking, but the Let Me Talk, like, there's a bunch of them that are like free, and they're very simple, obviously. So you're not modeling tons of stuff, but you could modify it so you could have like go, and then you could have all the different places you're going, or you're on, off, come, stay, just those basic words that kids really want you to do. And so they'd be motivated to push those buttons, and you just have to, so I'm just saying you can just do it on your cell phone. So that's what I'm actually a real supporter. I'm like, I wish I would have known about them earlier. And you can also do the low tech as well. Sometimes that's a little overwhelming, actually, and it's hard to visualize. Like, I know it was really useful, the low tech, to actually see that in the preschool setting with his teacher. I was like, oh, I could do that. Like, that's doable, versus sometimes you start seeing those big ginormous boards, which are awesome, but that's not necessarily where you have to start. You can just start with labeling your toys, you know, type of stuff. So anyway, but yeah, I would definitely start earlier. And I would think, it seems like there's something for every, like, if you have any, depending what your delays are, what your physical issues are, it seems like they have a lot of things out there that could work for you.
Yeah, good. Okay, so Lisa, we have a question about what should you start with? Where do you get started? How do you get going? And what should you begin with as you get going on AAC?
I mean, so I'm going to just take from what Karen said earlier in the chat is you have to start, for us, it was we had to start with something motivating, and that is grandma, swimming, and basketball. So language that was around that was where we really needed to start. And I don't have a visual of speak for yourself, but you know, we did start with a few buttons and we expanded it, but we expanded it rather quickly so that Max always had a little bit more language than he needed. So that, you know, he was going someplace, like there was someplace else for him to go. But, you know, it was like, you know, here he loves basketball. So what about the words, you know, go, shoot, play, and then, you know, fringe words with, I'm drawing a diagram in the air here. And then fringe words associated with that. And that kind of, that sort of helped I think helped me to stay organized about how to get Max interested in it.
Good. Karen, where did you guys start, or what would you suggest to other parents about where to get started?
Yeah, I think like she was saying, the high preference items, foods, and then maybe also I would think about in places where you're going, but also thinking about food, places you're going, and just anything that causes anxiety, for instance. So, you know, I'm going to wash your hair, like, so the wash hair button, like, that's been useful actually, because even though he still doesn't want me to do it, it's a little less, it's not quite the, you know, this is your meltdown. And so it's just a little bit of a meltdown instead of a full on, this is going to be a full hour, you know, drama, which is okay. I mean, but it didn't need to, yeah. So that's also something I would think about. And I think what she was saying also about having an end vision, like, it was really useful. It's far away from me. It's about a 2-hour drive, but they have a technology, I don't know what it is, library. Anyway, and I borrowed a Proloquo device, and it was really useful just to see how it was set up. Like, you're like, oh, I could do that, where you have some, yeah, so you kind of have that end vision. So even if you do dumb it down like I did for Cora to like the field size of 2, because she wasn't wanting to participate at all with it. I mean, it's still a challenge for her, but it was nice. It's nice to have that vision of where you're going. So like she said, you could quickly expand.
Good. So we have a question from the chat, and actually I think this is a great question. How do you help siblings, or how can they help with AAC? And I want to expand that a little bit, not just siblings, but maybe whoever's involved in your life, you know, your best friend that comes over often, your parents that help out. How do you involve them or get them to be part of this AAC journey? Lisa.
So a few things we did at home was, so James has his own device actually that he has access to, so he can play with it, because, so I want to tell just a very short anecdote. And whenever Max uses his talker, James will look to see where Max is, because to James, that's it, that's his voice, that Max is talking. And so I think for like a sibling, there's the connection is just there. Like, it doesn't, it's not different. This is just what happens in our house. And, you know, Max uses it. This is Max's voice. But we do encourage them to, we do encourage James to use it, and, you know, for Max to use it with James, which isn't always successful. And we also use, but we do, like Karen said, we do have low-tech tools. We have stuff on our fridge that they both have access to. And I think even that kind of helps with the communication. I will say that expanding it out to extended family has been much more difficult. And I think one of the reasons that is they're not using it as much. So just like a language that isn't used often, if you're not accessing it, you're probably not going to use it that much. So I go back to the just one thing, which is, what one thing can grandma do with the device, with this talker, today. And it's not always successful. And a lot of times I don't want to put too much pressure on what's also supposed to be a fun situation. So I don't really think I have that good of an answer for it. But I think that it's like hard for it is difficult for everybody, I think, to come together on it. But I think the modeling is important probably for all people, not just the little person using it.
Yeah, I like how you said that this is just normal in your house, and so your other son just sees that as normal, and I appreciate that. But that's a good point. Karen, do you want to address that?
I don't have much experience, obviously, because they're both not talking. I know with cousins and just therapists, for instance, people are intimidated to use it, so it has been useful just to tell them specifically this is how you can use it. But also for siblings, I was thinking about, I haven't looked at the research for this yet, but I know that, for instance, in his kindergarten class, they're going to have other kids come in. They have it. What do they call that? They call it something where the kids come in and help. And so there's a name for that. And so I think there's probably some research around that you could look at. Because I know one thing that I've seen is the Tell Me AAC for the preschool classroom. And I think I saw another YouTube video like Carol Zangari did or something, where people would read together actually. And so they'll have the device in front of them and the book, and then the neurotypical child will read it, and they'll have like a little word map so you know where the words are, and then people start learning where they are in the device. I don't know, it's a thought, something like that.
Yeah, that's good. We have our Slack channel says peer buddy or peer modeling. But
peer buddy, thank you, that's the word. So yeah, so I'm just thinking there might be something there,
Nice. Okay, probably our final question here. This is from the chat channel as well. How did you begin to teach scanning? How did you get going on that? Because that's kind of a huge jump to a very different way to address things than we would normally do. So how did you get started in scanning through different pages and helping them understand how to locate things and move through a device and things? Lisa.
So that's still very difficult for Max. I mean, he will make a lot of mistakes. I mean, it seems like he wants to say something else, but that's not what he wants to say. So one thing I did is I added a button that says, "That's not what I wanted to say," so that we can clarify that with some self-correction. The other thing that has been enormously helpful was school. Max goes to a school that uses ABA, and they have written programs specifically that address use of AAC. Now, I'm conflicted about this a little bit because his device is for communication and not, something that, I feel like it shouldn't be used as like a teaching tool all the time. But I think for Max, actually, he needs that because he needs to learn where things are, and he needs to learn to take his time and look at things. And they've broken it down in steps for him. And I think that has really helped a lot. It also helped with, so Speak for Yourself only has 2 pages. The top page, and then one click, and then you click again, it brings you back to the top page. And that's actually one of the reasons I moved away from Proloquo, was because at that time it was like folder and folder and folder, and then we were all getting kind of lost. So we also, one important point there for me was, which is the right tool for my family and for the user. And I knew that Max was going to lose attention if he couldn't find it quickly. So those are the, that was important for us too.
Good. Okay, Karen, do you have anything to add about scanning?
I think Lisa had a lot of really great ones there. I mean, the only other one, just make them highly preferred, but it is difficult, obviously, especially since I am using a smaller one. So a lot of the buttons you have to go through. And so it is kind of, So it's not really super ideal, but I think he's starting to get the idea. Like today he wanted brown sugar. So he, that's like that's like 3 buttons in. I mean, you got to go to food, second page, ingredients, and then you finally get it. So I guess that's 4 buttons, but anyway, so, but I think he's starting to finally get it, but it's still slow. So I think Lisa's were really good though too.
Good. Well, thank you both for your time and for sharing your experiences and your insights. I know you've learned and gained a lot as you've worked through this in your lives, and we're very grateful that you're willing to share that with us. Thanks all those that attended the session, and we'll catch you in the next session. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.